I've been hunting since I was 12 years old. Deer, elk, turkey, I know the woods the way most people know their own neighborhoods. I know what belongs and what doesn't. I know the difference between a branch snapping under an animal and something that doesn't want to be heard. I know what deer do when something is wrong in the tree line. I know all of it, which is why what happened 3 years ago in rural Pennsylvania is something I cannot explain away, cannot rationalize, and cannot stop thinking about. Whatever was in those woods that morning wasn't lost. I knew exactly where I was, and it had been out there a long time. I hunt a lease about 90 minutes from my house, 200 acres of mixed hardwood and pine in a remote county. My stand is a fixed ladder stand on the edge of a creek bottom, overlooking a natural funnel between the ridges. Third morning of bow season, I was up the stand before first light, clear, cold. No wind, perfect conditions, nothing unusual at dawn, squirrels moving. A doe crossing the creek bottom at 70 yards, the woods waking up. Around 7:30, the woods went quiet, not gradual quiet. Sudden, the squirrels stopped, the birds stopped, that total. Weighted silence that every experienced hunter knows means something significant has entered the area. The doe had gone completely rigid, head up, ears forward. Staring into the thick pines on the opposite ridge, not at me, at the pines. I looked at the pines. Dense, dark, 100 yards out. Then I saw it, a shape standing in the tree line at a bright still. I glassed it with my binoculars. It was a man, standing in the pines, motionless, wearing dark clothing, no blaze orange. He was facing my direction. I couldn't make out a face, just a shape tall, lean, arms at his sides. Deliberate stillness. My first thought was trespasser. I lowered my bow, stood up in the stand to make myself visible, and raised one hand. He didn't move. I held my hand up. The doe bolted, but the man didn't react. He just kept looking toward my stand. I climbed down. I wanted solid ground under my feet. I descended the ladder, unclipped my harness, and looked back. He was gone. No movement, no sound of footsteps through the dry leaves. He had simply stopped being visible. I told my hunting partner, Ray, that evening. Ray's been hunting that lease longer than me. He got a look on his face I didn't like. Ray said a guy who leased the property before us had reported a similar thing and stopped hunting that stand altogether. I went back the next morning, different stand, better sight line. At 6:10, I found him again, same tree line, same position. He'd been standing in those pines in the complete dark waiting. I called the sheriff's department from my stand. Quietly, a deputy entered the property when he got within 60 yards. The man moved, walking quickly, deeper into the pines. He left something behind. In the spot where he'd been standing, there was a flat rock with several small animal bones arranged carefully. They found the camp deep in the public ground. Evidence suggested it had been occupied for months, and a clear line of sight to my stand. He'd been watching that stand since before the season opened. They never found him. The camp was abandoned. I pulled my stand that November. Ray and I let the lease go. It didn't feel like a choice, more like a conclusion. I hunt other land now. But something changed. There's a second layer of watching that never fully switches off. For at least one full season, I sat in that stand believing I was the one doing the watching. I was wrong about that.